You're listening to The Wells Report, which will return in 1 minute. The Wells Report returns in 30 seconds. North to south, coast to coast, around the world. This is the Wells Report. Good morning. My name is John David Wells. What do? We report the news honestly and fairly. We analyze the news for fact and bias. We point out both. We make commentary. That is not news. That is opinion, both yours and mine. And so we debate. News, analysis, commentary, and debate. This is the Wells Report. This is day 4 of the Israeli-Hamas war. And it is becoming more savage as time goes by. We have complete coverage again for you today, and that begins with this. Time now for the front page on the Wells Report. Thanks very much for joining us. My name is John David Wells. USA Today reporting the very latest on the Hamas war with Israel. The Israeli military effort to hunt down militants intensified, and Israel's prime minister promised to defeat them forcefully as the death toll on both sides from the now 4-day war rose to about 1,600, including at least 11 Americans. Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant ordered a complete siege on Gaza yesterday, pledging to cut electricity, cut off food and fuel to the impoverished home to more than 2 million Palestinians. The Israeli military, which called up 300,000 reservists, pounded Gaza with aerial assaults aimed at halting Hamas rockets toward Israel border towns. In response, Hamas has threatened to kill hostages if attacks targeting civilians continue from Israel. What they say are attacks targeting civilians continue without warning. Palestinian Prime Minister Mohammed Shtayyeh, in a social media post yesterday, said there were massacres taking place. Entire families were wiped out in Gaza. More than 100,000 have been displaced. He again blamed Israel for the war, claiming years of occupation and aggression. In various bullet points, Israeli Rear Admiral David Hagari said the military has taken full control of communities bordering Gaza and only sporadic fighting was ongoing. The death toll includes about 900 in Israel, more than 680 in Gaza, home to 2.3 million Palestinians. Hamas claimed 4 hostages it kidnapped were killed by Israeli airstrikes, which the health ministry in Gaza said have injured more than 3,700 people. Israel reported more than 2,500 injured. Rescue workers found 100 bodies in the farming village of Beeri, about 10% of its population. This after a long hostage standoff with gunmen east of the Gaza Strip. The White House, President Joe Biden, is having its team coordinate with Israel on all aspects of the crisis and continue their work with regional partners to warn anyone who might seek to take advantage of this situation. The Biden administration said the White House will be illuminated in the blue and white of the Israeli flag as a symbol of the United States' 75-year relationship with Israel and American support in the wake of the attacks. Updates continue, this time from Fox News. Israel's counteroffensive into Gaza extended through the night, including airstrikes into Gaza City, home to Hamas's centers of government. Israeli warplanes pounded downtown Gaza City with relentless bombardments into early today. This after Israel's prime minister vowed to retaliation against the Islamic militant group that would, quote, reverberate for generations, unquote. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu gave a nationally televised address where he said, "We've only started striking Hamas." He added, "What we will do to our enemies in the coming days will reverberate with them for generations." Israel so far issued warnings to civilians in areas of Gaza City and others where they intend to strike. The warnings have given civilians moments to evacuate, as to reduce the number of civilian deaths in the Gaza Strip. Updates also from Reuters. Israel pounded the Gaza Strip today with the fiercest airstrikes in the 75-year history of the conflict with the Palestinians, raising whole districts to dust. Israel has vowed mighty revenge since Islamist gunmen rampaged through their towns, leaving streets strewn with bodies in by far the deadliest attacks in history. It has called up hundreds of thousands of reservists and placed Gaza, crowded home to more than 2.3 million people, under total siege. Israeli media said deaths from Saturday's Hamas attacks have reached 900, mostly civilians, gunned down in homes, on streets, or at a desert dance party, dwarfing past modern attacks by Islamists, except for 9/11. Scores of Israelis and some foreigners were taken to Gaza as hostages. Some were paraded through the streets. Gaza's health ministry said that the Israeli retaliatory strikes have killed at least 770 people and wounded more than 4,000. The airstrikes, already the heaviest ever, intensified tonight or last night, shaking the ground and pouring columns of smoke and flames into the morning sky. The London Daily Mail is reporting that the terror group Hamas threatens video executions of their hostages. Hamas, the armed wing, said yesterday evening it would begin executing Israeli citizens civilian captives for each new Israeli bombing of civilian houses without warning. We have decided to put an end to this, and as of now, we declare that any targeting of our people in their homes without prior warning will be regrettably faced with the execution of one of the hostages of the civilians that we are holding. This, according to Abu Obaida. He's the spokesperson for the Al-Qassam brigades in a recording released to Al Jazeera. The group has abducted at least 100 people, including women and children, since clashes began. On Saturday, Obaida said that Hamas had been acting in accordance with Islamic instructions by keeping Israeli captives safe. He blamed the move on Israel's stepped-up bombing and killing of citizens inside their home in airstrikes without warning them. Gaza has been devastated by airstrikes since Saturday, with the IDF claiming to have hit 500 targets on Sunday night alone. The densely populated Jabalia refugee camp was among those hit early on Monday, with initial reports suggesting dozens of casualties. Iran is a part of this, although there are people that disclaim the idea that Iran had more to do with this than what basic reports around the world have been saying. USA Today reports this story as follows. Hamas has claimed it. Iran has denied it. The U.S. and Israeli governments say they don't, as of yet, have any direct evidence the Tehran government was behind the deadly Hamas terrorist attacks against Israel that continued through today. But a senior U.S. official said that Iran is certainly complicit in funding Hamas, the Palestinian Islamist movement, providing weapons to it and training paramilitary forces. Analysts say it could have a significant impact on a rapidly intensifying crisis that until now has been limited to battles between Israeli and Hamas forces. The Biden administration said yesterday that at least 11 Americans have been killed in the terrorist attacks. The White House confirmed it believes at least some Americans are among the hostages that Hamas operatives abducted through and brought back with them to Gaza. So far, the Biden administration is being very careful in saying it has no evidence of a direct Iranian role in the attacks. Yesterday morning, Principal Deputy National Secretary or Security Advisor John Feiner said that the Biden administration is investigating, but it lacks direct information that Tehran was behind these attacks. Feiner was asked about Iran's potential role in the attacks by ABC's Good Morning America host George Stephanopoulos, who cited a Wall Street Journal report that said Iranian security officials helped plan Hamas's Saturday surprise attack on Israel and gave them the green light for the assault in meetings in Beirut on Monday. Quote, so taking a step back, I think that we can be quite clear about, or what we can be quite clear about is that Iran is broadly complicit in these attacks for having supported Hamas going back decades, for having provided financial support, for having provided training, for having provided weapons to Hamas, said Feiner. What we don't have is direct information that shows Iran involvement in ordering or planning the attacks. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff has weighed in on this. America's top general has a message for Iran when it comes to the war between Hamas and Israel. The message is, quote, "Do not get involved," unquote. General Charles Q. Brown, Jr., the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, made the remark yesterday to a group of reporters traveling with him to Brussels, Belgium, this according to Reuters. We want to send a pretty strong message. We don't want this to broaden, and the idea is for Iran to get the message loud and clear, General Brown was quoted as saying. Former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo is hitting the Biden administration pretty hard for what he calls Iranian appeasement. This from Fox News. The Biden administration's foreign appeasement and weakness on the world stage helped set the stage for Hamas's terror attacks on Israel, according to former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, speaking to Fox News. Pompeo called footage of the Hamas kidnappings, rapes, and bombings, quote, grotesque and barbaric, unquote, saying that at least Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu appears to have understood the situation. Quote, "I'm hoping that the Biden administration, does not slow him down," he said on Hannity last night on Fox News. These are going to be long weeks. There are going to be some pictures that come out of Gaza that are going to be tragic. But make no mistake about it. Prime Minister Netanyahu has the duty to defend his own people in the same way the United States has that duty, unquote. He went on to say that President Biden has failed to specifically warn Hamas what the consequences will be if Americans are further harmed. Pompeo contrasted the relative silence from the White House to former President Donald Trump's attack following the Iran-backed rebel attacks on the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad. He said America at the time made it clear that it would be Iran, not violent, quote, knuckleheads on the ground, unquote, in Iraq, that would be responsible for harm caused to Americans. President Biden has also been reported to be ready to weigh in on an address to the nation today at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. This from NBC News. President Joe Biden will deliver remarks from the White House this afternoon after Hamas's unprecedented attack on Israel, according to a White House official. Biden's remarks are scheduled for 1 p.m. Eastern Time, days after Hamas fighters raided southern parts of the country, killing hundreds of people and taking hostages in a quickly evolving war. In a statement yesterday, President Biden said 11 Americans were killed in the conflict, adding it is likely that some Americans were among Hamas's hostages. Quote, "We are seeing the immense scale and reach of this tragedy," said the president. "In this moment of heartbreak, the American people stand shoulder to shoulder with Israelis. We remember the pain of being attacked by terrorists at home, and Americans across the country stand united against these evil acts that have once more claimed innocent American lives. It is an outrage," unquote. For we the people's part in this, U.S. Jews and Palestinians are worrying over the violence. This from USA Today. 2 days after the surprise deadly holiday attacks by Hamas in Israel, many members of Cantor Benny Rositsky's synagogue in Manhattan were still in disbelief. Somehow, he said, he had to summon the strength to support them. They can't imagine what has happened, he said. He oversees the Park East Synagogue in Manhattan. I mean, there were parents in the school that came up today to the services who said, "I feel this is a nightmare. When am I waking up?" Across the country, Melissa Chapman of Oakland, California, said there were almost no words to describe the deep heartbreak and devastation being felt within Jewish and Israeli communities around the nation. Osama Aboud Irshed, who is the executive director of the Virginia-based nonprofit Americans for Justice in Palestine, said he was not surprised by the attack, widely seen as the worst escalation in Israeli-Palestine conflict in at least 50 years, saying tensions had been accumulating over decades and decades. Irshed said Palestinians, particularly those in Gaza, are demanding to live free lives. They have been prevented from basic human rights. Of course, we want to see this come to a peaceful resolution, but history cannot be ignored, unquote. And that is today's front page. Obviously, there's much more coverage to come as we look at day 4 of this conflict. And as I said moments ago, the pictures coming out of Israel are pretty ugly. More of this coming up in just a moment. This is the Wells Report.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
Call 877-512-3895. That's 877-512-3895. 877-512-3895.
If you're living with diabetes and using insulin, you know the pain of pricking your fingers over and over again. By wearing a small device called a continuous glucose monitor, or CGM, you can reduce the pain of pricking your fingers right away. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline today and learn about the latest CGM technology. Not only can a CGM immediately reduce pain, it's accurate, easy to use, and helps you make better diabetes treatment decisions. And if you have Medicare or private insurance, you can see if you qualify for a CGM at little or no out-of-pocket cost. We'll also provide free shipping of your new CGM, and we'll bill your insurance company for you. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline to see if you qualify for a CGM at little to no out-of-pocket cost.
Nobody wants to get ripped off, broken into, or robbed, but nobody wants to pay a lot of money to have their home protected either. I've got an offer to tell you about to provide home security for your home for less than $1 a day. For real, with no installation or equipment charges. And this is from a company rated #1 by a leading consumer research company. According to the facts, most of you won't even call unless there's a burglary in your neighborhood or something bad happened. So let's give you a reason. Save money. For less than $1 a day with no other costs, you can get your home secured. Plus, get a lifetime equipment replacement warranty. You need protection for your home. Call the Home Security Hotline right now.
Get your home secured for less than $1 a day, and every caller today immediately qualifies for free installation. Call now.
Call 877-275-0973. 877-275-0973. That's 877-275-0973.
Good morning. This is the Wells Report. Let me try that one more time. Take two. Good morning. This is the Wells Report. I am John David Wells. Thank you very much for joining us today. We are all still recoiling in horror over the attack from Hamas into the Israeli homeland. And what we are seeing is getting worse every moment. There are reports that have come out regarding the early stages of the attack that are as heinous as any war crime you have ever heard anything about, ever. And they're so bad, in fact, that I'm not going to discuss them in the open. Because, frankly, obscenity doesn't necessarily have to be imagery. It can be in spoken word. And some of the things that I've heard so far today, reported by the various news agencies around the world, have crossed that horrifying line. Many people are wondering why it was that these people were able to pull off this attack without Israel apparently having much to know about it. Facing one of the most sophisticated surveillance states on the planet, it appears as though Hamas simply went dark. This report from the Hindustan Times, this is the first report I've seen that actually delves into how this happened. The militant group's attack Saturday night caught Israel's national security apparatus completely off guard. A shocking fact, given the scope of the incursion, which included attacks by sea, air, and land, pushed deep into Israeli territory. In theory, it should not have been possible. Israel's intelligence services have a reputation as some of the world's most sophisticated. The Gaza Strip, a slice of land next to Egypt, is one of the most surveilled places on the planet. Phone lines are tapped. Satellites watch overhead. Informants keep tab on 2 million residents of an area just over twice the size of Washington, D.C. Israel, the U.S., will need years to sift through all the failings that allowed Hamas to move with such a surprise to deadly effect, killing hundreds of Israelis and capturing others. But already a picture has begun to emerge of how the group's fighters did it, according to current and former intelligence officers in the U.S., Israel, and elsewhere. Now, many questions remain unanswered. This is all first blush information. What's clear is that Hamas went low-tech, avoiding Israel's ability to tap its communications and even perhaps exploiting the Israeli Defense Force's confidence that its missile attacks could be repelled or prevented. Quote, "My suspicion is that Hamas was able to keep such a vast operation, which included many, many trainers, lots of operational training, and bringing in a vast amount of munitions, close hold because they went very old school." This according to Beth Sanner, former deputy director of national intelligence. Quote, "I suspect they never talked about it electronically," said Sanner. "They broke up into cells, did individual meetings. Each group was assigned to do different things. Very few people understood how each of the components came together as an entire plan. As dawn broke on Saturday, 1,000 Hamas fighters burst through the technologically advanced fence designed to protect against threats from Gaza, fanning out across towns and villages. Children were shot in front of their parents. Hostages were dragged from their homes. Overhead, thousands of rockets rained down as other fighters entered the country on paragliders. A person familiar with Israeli intelligence operations said the success of the attack likely means the country's military intelligence, which has primary responsibility for monitoring developments in Gaza, lacked high-quality human resources inside Hamas's leadership. It's also possible the group's planning relied on encrypted technology. This, according to Andrew Berrine, an executive director with Flashpoint and a former group chief at the U.S. National Counterterrorism Center. Quote, "I have a feeling there's also a component of clandestine communication and the use of devices capable of it." There will be more in the coming days regarding just exactly how this all came down and came to be. We will cover it for you as we always do here on the Wells Report. Our telephone number is 817-379-2172. 817-379-2172. Bringing you the very latest. We'll continue to keep our eyes on videos and live feeds around the country. And as we said during the front page, the President of the United States will address the nation at 1 p.m. this afternoon. We will very likely handle a special report here on the Wells Report. So by all means, keep yourself handy to some platform near you where you see this broadcast. Back with more in a moment.
Nobody wants to get ripped off, broken into, or robbed, but nobody wants to pay a lot of money to have their home protected either. I've got an offer to tell you about to provide home security for your home for less than $1 a day. For real, with no installation or equipment charges. And this is from a company rated #1 by a leading consumer research company. According to the facts, most of you won't even call unless there's a burglary in your neighborhood or something bad happened. So let's give you a reason. Save money. For less than $1 a day with no other costs, you can get your home secured. Plus, get a lifetime equipment replacement warranty. You need protection for your home. Call the Home Security Hotline right now.
Get your home secured for less than $1 a day, and every caller today immediately qualifies for free installation. Call now.
Call 877-275-0973. 877-275-0973. That's 877-275-0973.
If you're living with diabetes and using insulin, you know the pain of pricking your fingers over and over again. By wearing a small device called a continuous glucose monitor, or CGM, you can reduce the pain of pricking your fingers right away. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline today and learn about the latest CGM technology. Not only can a CGM immediately reduce pain, it's accurate, easy to use, and helps you make better diabetes treatment decisions. And if you have Medicare or private insurance, you can see if you qualify for a CGM at little or no out-of-pocket cost. We'll also provide free shipping of your new CGM, and we'll bill your insurance company for you. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline to see if you qualify for a CGM at little to no out-of-pocket cost. How would you like to get high-speed internet for your home for less than $2 a day? That's right, for about $50 a month, you'll get lightning fast internet. Are you paying less than $50 a month right now for your internet? Then call Whole Home Connect right now for blazing fast internet at $50 a month with no price increases, no hidden fees, no contracts, no equipment fees. It's a great deal. And guess what? You can try it for 15 days. If you don't like it, you get your money back, but you're gonna love it, and you're gonna love the price. Internet for your home for $50 a month. That's less than $2 a day. Plus, no contracts, no equipment fees, and our 15-day guarantee. Call now.
Call 866-245-6155. That's 866-245-6155. Again, 866-245-6155. 866-245-6155.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
Call 877-512-3895. That's 877-512-3895. 877-512-3895.
This is the Wells Report. Good morning. My name is John David Wells, covering the Israeli-Hamas war. This is day 4 of that, and we are looking at CNN. They are absolutely leading the league when it comes to live updates on just exactly what is going on in this war. Many people are calling it a conflict. That is misnomer. This is not a conflict. This is a war. From 5 minutes ago, CNN reports a huge barrage of rockets have been fired from Gaza. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go ahead and show you. I'm going to show you this picture that I have on this article. I want you to see this. That picture right there. Let me see if I can make this a little bit bigger for you. Let me see what I can do here. It's going to take me several different tries to get it big enough to see. All right, that's the best we can do at this particular moment. As a matter of fact, we may have shot ourselves in the foot a little bit there. But you can see that there is a huge number of smoke trails from these rockets that are being fired from basically downtown Gaza. Now, these rockets are intermixed. You'll see that there are some of these that have contrails that are not nearly as straight. There's this one here on the left that I have my mouse on. I don't know whether you can see that. That is a different type of rocket than some of these others. If you look at these rocket contrails, you'll notice that they're kind of wavy. And the reason is because they are completely unguided. This one with a very straight contrail, as you can see, that leaves from the ground and goes very, very straight, that is a guided rocket, sometimes known as a missile, because rockets that are guided are missiles. So there is an interesting mix of things, just a small little detail for you to keep in mind. Obviously, it's very difficult for Palestinians in the Gaza Strip to spend an awful lot of time making missiles that are that sophisticated. So where did they come from? And that is kind of the grist of the mill for what is going on in intelligence services around the world at this particular moment. So anyway, that is the story that we are seeing regarding these rocket attacks coming from Gaza, at this point 6 minutes old, as we come to the air this morning. The parents of a 23-year-old American, Hirsch Goldberg Polin, are holding on to hope for their son who was wounded. He was at the Nova Music Festival in Israel Saturday when Hamas attacked and began taking hostages. Rachel Goldberg and John Polin told CNN they last heard from their son Saturday morning, receiving 2 WhatsApp messages in the same minute. He said, "I love you," and he said, "I'm sorry." Goldberg immediately tried to call him. It just rang and rang. They sent follow-up messages. "Are you okay? Let me know if you're okay. I'm leaving my phone on. Tell me you're okay." The messages went unanswered. The Goldbergs have not heard from their son since. They say the police told them around 12:45 local time Saturday afternoon their son's phone signal was at the Gaza border. Since then, they are learning more about their son's heroism. A first-hand account from a young woman who was in a bunker with Goldberg Polin when the Hamas forces attacked said he helped to throw grenades out of a bunker before getting his arm blown off from the elbow down. Quote, "So we know that he's been critically wounded. His arm was treated with a tourniquet being made from a shirt that he was wearing. But the terrorists came in after the gunfire settled. They said anyone who could stand up could walk out," according to Goldberg. Physically wounded with a severe injury and shell-shocked, he was said to have not really understood what was happening, according to his parents. The young woman who told the parents that Goldberg Polin stood up did not lose consciousness. He was very calm. He was not screaming. He walked out with his arm in a tourniquet, according to Goldberg. The parents urged the U.S. government and other leaders to rescue and treat their son and other hostages. The family was born in the U.S. but made Aliyah and moved to Israel in 2008. One of the Israeli foundational laws is the right of any Jew in the world to make Aliyah and immigrate to Israel. The family still has American citizenship. An international humanitarian law prohibits a siege of Gaza, this according to a UN human rights commissioner. The imposition of sieges that endanger citizens by depriving them of essential goods, quote, "is prohibited under international humanitarian law," unquote. This according to Ravina Shamdasani, a spokesperson for the Office of the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights. This in a report this morning. Shamdasani's comments came a day after Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant ordered a complete siege of Gaza, saying he would halt the supply of electricity, food, water, and fuel to the Palestinian enclave following Hamas's devastating surprise attack over the weekend. Quote, these risks are seriously compounding the already dire human rights and humanitarian situation in Gaza, including the capacity of medical facilities to operate, especially in light of increasing numbers of injured people, said Shamdasani today, speaking at a news conference in Geneva with UN Humanitarian Office Representative Jens Larke. Larke said today, the decision to cut off the water supply to Gaza affects more than 610,000 people and will result in severe shortage of drinking water. Quote, we remain extremely alarmed by these rapidly escalating events, said Larke, adding that the displacement across the Gaza Strip has reached more than 187,500 people. Quote, since Saturday, 4 schools, 8 health care facilities in Gaza have sustained damage. Destruction of infrastructure and streets has hindered the movement of civil defense and medical teams trying to reach the victims, he said, adding that healthcare, water, and sanitation facilities have also sustained damage. This from just 41 minutes ago. The Israeli death toll has risen to more than 1,000 in the Hamas attacks. This according to the Israeli embassy here in the United States. More than 1,000 people were killed in an attack by Hamas on Israel over the weekend. This according to the Israeli embassy here in the United States. The death toll now stands at 1,008, with at least 3,418 injured, according to the embassy. This reported on X. The Israeli Defense Forces said it cannot confirm or deny these reports from the embassy. An IDF spokesperson told CNN it was aware of over 900 deaths. For its part, the Israeli Defense Force said its jets struck more than 100 targets in the El Furqan area in Gaza today. Israeli jets have struck more than 100 targets in the El Furqan area in Gaza today, according to the Israeli Defense Forces. Over the past day, IDF has struck over 250 targets in the area. The Defense Forces said it also struck in the Rafah area, including an underground tunnel used for smuggling weapons and equipment. Quote, the El Furqan area serves as a hub for Hamas, from which operations against Israel were launched, it claimed. This is the IDF, adding that it will continue to operate against Hamas infrastructure used to carry out attacks against Israel. So the only border crossing between Gaza and Egypt was struck today. By the way, this from an hour and 13 minutes ago. This is a spokesperson for the Palestinian Interior Ministry, Ayad al-Bazam. He was speaking today. Israeli warplanes struck the gateway, and teams working at the crossing were asked to evacuate immediately due to threats of strikes at the crossing, said al-Bazam. The order came from the management of the Rafah crossing on the Egyptian side. The Israeli Defense Force did not say that the border crossing was struck, but said that an underground tunnel for smuggling weapons and equipment was struck in the Rafah area. It's unclear where exactly the strike occurred. The Rafah crossing was working normally today, according to the Palestinian Border Crossing General Authority, adding that 75 names had been cleared for passage tomorrow. About the border crossings, the tightly controlled Rafah crossing with Egypt is the only crossing available to Gazans looking to flee following Hamas's attack on Israel. All crossings out of the territory are shut. The IDF has urged citizens in Gaza to leave the residential areas immediately for their safety as the Israeli military operations continue to target Hamas and shut all crossings between Israel and Gaza, potentially setting the stage for a ground incursion into the enclave. And yes, President Biden is expected to speak with Benjamin Netanyahu today. This, according to an administration official. The anticipated call would mark the third call between the two leaders since Hamas launched attacks on Israel, and would come as the president is set to speak about the terrorist attacks this afternoon. That speech will happen at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, 12 p.m. in the Central Time Zone. Netanyahu has been in constant contact with President Biden as the crisis unfolded, according to the Israeli Prime Minister. Vladimir Putin, for his part, this being reported from 1 hour and 8 minutes ago, has made his first comments on the conflict in Israel, framing it as a clear example of failure of U.S. policy. Quote, we see a sharp escalation of the situation in the Middle East. I think that many will agree with me that this is a clear example of the failure of United States policy in the Middle East, which tried to monopolize any settlement between Israelis and Palestinians, said Putin at the Kremlin today. Putin went on to criticize the U.S. approach for not prioritizing compromises acceptable to both sides, emphasizing that it often involved imposing ideas and pressure without considering the fundamental interests of the Palestinian people. Quote, unfortunately, the U.S. administration, were not concerned with finding compromises acceptable to both sides, but on the contrary, they were putting forward their own ideas about how this should be done, putting pressure on both sides, said Putin. Quote, without taking into account the fundamental interests of the Palestinian people, I mean, first of all, they need to implement the decision of the UN Security Council on the creation of an independent, sovereign Palestinian state. Putin also emphasized the need to minimize damage to civilian populations and called on all conflicting parties to prioritize this goal. I will have something to say on that. This is just an opinion on my part. It has to do with this. The Palestinians do not want a separate country. They don't want to have anything to do with their own ideas about having a sovereign Palestinian state. I mean, they do want a sovereign Palestinian state, but first, they want to kill all the Jews. And that is made plain by this attack. This is something that I've been thinking about ever since we started hearing about it, especially with the atrocities being committed by these forces. This means that Hamas is all in. They have decided that this is the hill that they are quite literally going to die on. And the case of this matter is that Israel has been given no real choice in this. You simply do not cross the frontier between the Gaza Strip and Israel and start slaughtering people on the street, torturing them in front of their children and their spouses, etc., kidnapping those. I've seen video that broke my heart having to do with people being carted off to the Gaza Strip to be used for whatever atrocious part or idea that might pop into one of these people's heads. Hamas has decided that, we are going to prosecute this war to the very best of our ability. Unfortunately, they don't have a chance against the Israeli Defense Force. Israel will shortly go into the Gaza Strip, and they will find anyone that is left from Hamas in the Gaza Strip, and they will slaughter them in place. Much more mercifully, I suspect, than some of what the Hamas fighters have been doing with Israelis that they found. Some of the video shows point-blank executions of kids coming out of that music festival. And that's just the stuff that you can talk about. There are things you can't talk about. And I just can't. And these will be made plain as time goes on. But regardless of what Hamas's motivations are, regardless of whatever situation Iran has played in this particular circumstance, one thing is for sure. At the end of this, Hamas will cease to exist. And that is something that should actually happen. I've also heard an awful lot of saber rattling from Hezbollah. That is a much more sophisticated, much more militaristically advanced terror group that operates in southern Lebanon. I've heard that they are planning on joining the conflict, but I haven't seen much of that. I've seen a few rocket attacks, etc. Why? Because they know that the attack on Hezbollah in southern Lebanon would be more of something you might expect in a technological war capable of being waged by the Israeli Defense Forces. You see, you may be watching some of this video, and you may be watching what's been happening in the Gaza Strip, etc., etc. But that is the Israeli Defense Force fighting with one of their hands, possibly both of their hands, tied behind their back. If, say, for example, Hezbollah decided to join the fray and attack the northern part of Israel, the Israeli Defense Force would obliterate everything that had anything to do with Hezbollah in very short order. Now, what's going to happen here is that the Israeli Defense Force is going to move on a ground incursion into the Gaza Strip. By the time they get there, most of the Hamas leadership that's left will have escaped through that one port of exit that I was just talking about. and they will likely find refuge in Egypt. Israel will very likely close off that port of exit, and no one will be allowed to come back in, probably forever. In other words, Hezbollah has decided to die on this hill, and I am absolutely sure that the Israeli Defense Force will grant that request. Now, what is it next after that? Don't know. I do not know. But one thing you need to keep in mind, the propaganda from the Palestinian side is propaganda. And you can absolutely assure yourself of that. More coming up in a moment. This is the Wells Report.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
Call 877-512-3895. That's 877-512-3895. 877-512-3895.
How would you like to get high-speed internet for your home for less than $2 a day? That's right, for about $50 a month, you'll get lightning-fast internet. Are you paying less than $50 a month right now for your internet? Then call Whole Home Connect right now for blazing fast internet at $50 a month with no price increases, no hidden fees, no contracts, no equipment fees. It's a great deal. And guess what? You can try it for 15 days. If you don't like it, you get your money back, but you're gonna love it, and you're gonna love the price. Internet for your home for $50 a month. That's less than $2 a day. Plus, no contracts, no equipment fees, and our 15-day guarantee. Call now.
Call 866-245-6155. That's 866-245-6155. Again, 866-245-6155. 866-245-6155.
This is the Wells Report. John David Wells at your service. Telephone number is 817-379-2172. 817-379-2172. Gary joins us. Gary, thanks very much for being a part of the broadcast today.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Talk to us a little bit about what you're seeing, because, you know, one of the things that I want to keep in mind is that obviously Israel is going to change the Gaza Strip, probably forever. We can talk about that coming up in just a couple of seconds. But you are a police officer. You are retired now, but still a police officer. We have Jews and Palestinians living in the United States. Do you see any interaction with them? There have been a few brawls, specifically one on Saturday in Times Square, your old stomping grounds, or at least New York. Talk to us a little bit about what you'd be thinking if you were engaged in police activity these days with what's been going on between the Palestinians and Jews with that same population here in the U.S.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, what your It would be action through awareness, intel, et cetera, et cetera. Troublemakers, agitators, radicals are identified by every police department, whether the department has 3 people in it or 30,000. And those folks will be monitored. They'll be kept an eye on. And, also the groups that they're affecting or coming out against, they'll be kept an eye on also. Already you got those 4 knuckleheads, and I won't even, call them by their nickname, up there on Capitol Hill that are, starting their nonsense. So that doesn't help anybody.
You're talking about the squad.
The squad, yeah.
Yes, those people amazingly, are clinging to their anti-Israel rhetoric on this. There's no excuse. There is no moral equivalence to any of this. There is nothing that you can compare with what Hamas has done to the people of Israel on this one. There's no way to defend it. Nothing, zero across the board. And all these idiots do, and it's not just relegated to them, it's anybody who wants to be an agitating radical troublemaker. You're going to cause us problems here. We're weakened enough across the board, across the board and all over the globe because of this frail sock puppet and this radical administration that we have in this government. This isn't helping us at all. Yeah.
It's not helping us internally at all.
Let's talk a little bit about what you see the Israelis doing moving forward. I'm trying to figure out why Israel wouldn't essentially evacuate the entire Gaza Strip, deport everyone living there, just deport them, and then totally level the entire Gaza Strip. In other words, reduce it down to sand. I don't know why they wouldn't do that.
You know what, JD? I agree with you, except for one thing. I think right now they're keeping that one exit area open to let whoever wants to go. And I'm sure at some point that avenue of escape, if you will be cut off, and they're going to level the whole place. And that's it. I mean, I don't see them being as generous as deporting and saying, okay, hurry up and go. I think the writing's on the wall with that. It's just, they're going to flatten it. It's going to be a pile of rubble. That's my take on it.
I can't see that they would do anything else because the people that would do this, right, regardless of whatever grievance they might have, the people that are in the leadership positions of the Palestinian Authority, they're talking about how this is decades and decades of mistreatment at the hands of Israelis that has boiled over into this. That's basically the same excuse they've used over and over and over again, but I see it completely different at this point. I see it differently. I see this is far beyond the pale. This is not something that you could tolerate at any level, but certainly in this particular case, I think Benjamin Netanyahu had it right on the button. This is a war, should be prosecuted as such, and the people that are involved in the Gaza Strip, regardless of whether or not they're actual combatants, allow actual combatants to live amongst them. And I have very little sympathy for the fact that they've allowed these monsters to live inside their neighborhoods, et cetera, et cetera. And if it costs them their houses, costs them their neighborhoods, costs them the place where they live, I think that's okay.
Absolutely. When it's on that, when you take it on that realm, remember there are people that are, they're getting their guns put to their children's heads and saying, we're camping out here. We're setting our rockets up here, and they don't have a hell of a lot of choice. And they're the quote unquote innocent victims in all this. But getting back to the original point, I think shortly, I don't know if it's going to be a matter of days or hours or whatever, but that last exit route out of there is going to get cut off, and they're just going to carpet bomb the place. Yeah, I mean that's my philosophy, and I hope I'm wrong. I hope this can come to some kind of a decent conclusion for all the innocent people, but I'm not seeing that here.
Thanks very much, Gary. I appreciate your time. Thank you very much for your call. There was a guy who was a general in the United States Air Force. His name was Curtis LeMay. And Curtis LeMay discussed civilians. He discussed whether or not civilians were indeed innocent. And he said, you're not at war with a government. You're at war with a nation. In other words, the people living in that nation buy into their government at some at some level. And what he said is therefore there are no innocent civilians. This is not John David Wells, some bellicose armchair dude saying go level the place. I'm trying to come up with a solution that will work. Obviously, what Israel has done, doing their absolute dead level best to negotiate, at least as far as I know, has been a failure. Is it time to give war a chance? Our telephone number, 817-379-2172, 817-379-2172. Back with Hour 2 next.
How would you like to get high-speed internet for your home for less than $2 a day? That's right, for about $50 a month, you'll get lightning fast internet. Are you paying less than $50 a month right now for your internet? Then call Whole Home Connect right now for blazing fast internet at $50 a month with no price increases, no hidden fees, no contracts, no equipment fees. It's a great deal. And guess what? You can try it for 15 days. If you don't like it, you get your money back, but you're gonna love it, and you're gonna love the price. Internet for your home for $50 a month. That's less than $2 a day. Plus, no contracts, no equipment fees, and our 15-day guarantee. Call now.
Call 866-245-6155. That's 866-245-6155. Again, 866-245-6155. 866-245-6155.
Nobody wants to get ripped off, broken into, or robbed, but nobody wants to pay a lot of money to have their home protected either. I've got an offer to tell you about to provide home security for your home for less than $1 a day. For real, with no installation or equipment charges. And this is from a company rated #1 by a leading consumer research company. According to the facts, most of you won't even call unless there's a burglary in your neighborhood or something bad happened. So let's give you a reason. Save money. For less than $1 a day with no other costs, you can get your home secured. Plus, get a lifetime equipment replacement warranty. You need protection for your home. Call the Home Security Hotline right now.
Get your home secured for less than $1 a day, and every caller today immediately qualifies for free installation. Call now.
Call 877-275-0973. 877-275-0973. That's 877-275-0973.
Hey, thanks for joining us this morning for the Wells Report, and make sure you share us with all your friends on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, Rumble, Patreon, and don't forget to check out our Substack column, which will be coming up a little bit later on this afternoon. When you do all this, make sure you subscribe. Make sure you give us those thumbs up. They are really important. Check the notification box so you know when we're on the air, and whatever you do, join us every morning, Monday through Friday, 9 to 11 a.m. Central Time, for the Wells Report.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
Call 877-512-3895. That's 877-512-3895. 877-512-3895.
If you're living with diabetes and using insulin, you know the pain of pricking your fingers over and over again. By wearing a small device called a continuous glucose monitor, or CGM, you can reduce the pain of pricking your fingers right away. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline today and learn about the latest CGM technology. Not only can a CGM immediately reduce pain, it's accurate, easy to use, and helps you make better diabetes treatment decisions. And if you have Medicare or private insurance, you can see if you qualify for a CGM at little or no out-of-pocket cost. We'll also provide free shipping of your new CGM, and we'll bill your insurance company for you. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline to see if you qualify for a CGM at little to no out-of-pocket cost.
North to south, coast to coast, around the world. This is the Wells Report. Good morning, I'm John David Wells. What do we do here? We report the news honestly and fairly. We analyze the news for fact and bias. We point out both. We make commentary. That is not news. That is opinion, yours and mine. And so we debate. News, analysis, commentary, and debate. The story this entire week so far, indeed, the war between Hamas and Israel. Israel is preparing for what will be an invasion of the Gaza Strip, and we will see just exactly what happens when that happens. Many people who are militarily astute, or at least people who are working their way through trying to make sense out of all of this, are trying to figure out exactly what Israel's next move would be. And a lot of people are saying what should happen is that, well, the Gaza Strip should, as a place where people could live and do business, etc., should probably cease to exist. It's going to take something like that. It's going to take something that is biblical. And Benjamin Netanyahu has said that what will happen, courtesy of the attacks on Hamas and against Hamas, will be something they'll talk about for generations. A generation is 30 years. Generations meaning more than one, so somewhere around a century or more. That is something that has been echoed by various people throughout history. I just referenced General Curtis LeMay. Well, there was General Mattis, who said when he was moving into Afghanistan, he called a meeting of all the tribal elders and he said, "We are coming in peace. We have no issue with, we are not interested in creating any problems with you, but honest to goodness, if you F with us," he used the word obviously, "what we do to you next will be talked about here for 1,000 years. And he said, "I say that with tears in my eyes." And he was serious. And that is exactly how you have to handle things like this. There has to be a way to motivate people who are just irresponsibly uninterested in peace. The Palestinians, since I've been watching this story all the way back to the 70s, the 60s, they've been handed the opportunity to have 4 homelands. 4. And there were all kinds of things, from Jimmy Carter having people together, from President Clinton having everybody coming together. George W. Bush didn't have anything to do with any of them because there was no reason to. Because Palestine wants to kill all the Jews and take over Israel. That is their motive. And we see that proven today in what Hamas is doing with Israeli citizens. That is simply the way it is. You're going to have to do something that makes a statement beyond just what is called pacification. In other words, to impose peace. You're going to have to do something that changes these people's lives. And I would, as I said earlier, I would suggest that the way to do it would be to go into the Gaza Strip with the Israeli military, evacuate everyone, deport everyone. You don't have to necessarily go to sleep, but you can't stay here. Out. And let all of these other nations that have watched this torture of both the Israeli and Palestinian populations have them suddenly take responsibility for some of it by having to have these Palestinians move into their countries. The question is, do these other countries, Jordan, Egypt, even Syria, Lebanon, do they want the Palestinians moving into their countries? Probably not. Probably not. Because over the decades, the Palestinian people have turned themselves into a terrorist group. Again, this is something you can see. And so what you have is something else has to happen. What I would suggest is, I don't know that there's anything worth having in the Gaza Strip. Evacuate everyone. Destroy the place. Raze it to the ground. Bulldoze everything into a gigantic pile of whatever construction materials are left. And then slowly do away with it until there's nothing left. And then when the Gaza Strip is absolutely blank and absolutely just essentially a sand spit, no structures, no roads, nothing, then you can open it back up and start over from scratch. I don't see that there's any reason not to do that. If you have a different opinion, please, by all means, share it with me. Telephone number 817-379-2172, 817-379-2172. It's impossible to have a war underway without seeing the pictures of it. Israel and airstrikes. This from the Wall Street Journal earlier today.
Palestinians dead and thousands of wounded on both sides. A lot of destruction there, but a lot of fear and a lot of pain on this side. We can tell you that. We've heard from Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in the last 24 hours. He's been saying this coming military move will be something that generations will remember. We've got a little foretaste of it here today. We've been watching dozens and dozens of tanks lining up along the border, ready to go in if the decision is made to do it on the ground, but that could be a very, very tricky matter. Harris.
You know, Greg, before I let you go, something that's been really startling to watch today is how fast we are learning those hostage stories. And we know that Hamas, in its bloodthirsty evil, has been putting out videos and will continue to show the world what it is doing to basically annihilate the population of people that they were living next to. But they're not kind to their own people. There's absolutely no way to minimize what we just saw, except to say that it is heartbreaking from a just pure human standpoint. It's heartbreaking. On the other hand, it is voluntary. This is a voluntary move on the part of Hamas. These people that are so absolutely degenerately, monstrously, savagely anti-Jewish bigots
do not care about their neighbors in the West Bank or in the Gaza Strip. They don't care about their neighbors. They don't care about the people that simply want to get on with their lives. Now, I was looking at all of that. I was looking at those airstrikes, and I was saying to myself, you know, those are an awful lot of Hamas targets. You know, that's not indiscriminate. Israel is not just, as we were discussing before, just razing the entire place, just doing a grid destruction. All those buildings that you saw there are Hamas targets. And that's most of them. And that takes me back to General Curtis LeMay. The Palestinians living in the Gaza Strip, they could leave, but they didn't. And LeMay says there are no innocent civilians. You're dealing with a nation. Now, I understand that Hamas is not a nation state. But that is a very clever way around the rules of war and the rules of societal civilization. You're not actually a nation, so there's no declaration of war, etc. Although Israel did what I suggested the United States do way back during the 9/11 attacks, which was to declare war on the international terrorist infrastructure. Israel declared war on Hamas. They just happened to be in the West Bank. And that's what should have happened, and that's moving forward. That is what's going to happen. Nation states attacked by these ideologies, as opposed to nations, will respond. And they will respond by doing exactly that. They will attack the terrorist infrastructure responsible for this level of horror. So there are a lot of people that I respect that are speaking about all of this. And one of them is a former Secretary of State, a former director of the CIA. His name is Mike Pompeo. Mike Pompeo is a guy who I have followed. He was briefly considering a run for the presidency, but decided to withdraw very early on. And I was pretty much very sad about that. He has given an interview to Fox News. Let's talk a little bit about what he had to say in it. The Biden administration's foreign appeasement is a show of weakness on the world stage, and it helped set up Hamas's terror attack on Israel, according to former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. Pompeo called the footage of Hamas kidnappings, rapes, and bombings grotesque and barbaric, saying at least Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu appears to understand the situation. Quote, "I'm hoping the Biden administration doesn't slow him down. These are going to be long weeks. There are going to be some pictures that come out of Gaza that are going to be tragic. And you need to steel yourself for that, by the way. The stories you're going to hear about maiming and destruction and atrocity and all manner and war crimes are quite literally going to be very difficult for you to deal with. And you need to be ready for them because they're just beginning to happen now. These people are savages. They are savages, and they have proven it. And they don't seem to be trying to back off of it either. You know, they're threatening to execute their hostages live on video. Well, how do you negotiate with that? The answer is you don't. And so what do? Well, you handle things differently. Prime Minister Netanyahu has the duty to defend his own people in the same way the U.S. has our duty to defend ourselves, and the government has a duty to defend us. Quote, "We now have Americans held hostage, and Hamas, a puppet of Iran, is threatening to kill them. They've already killed 11 Americans." He said that President Biden has failed to specifically warn Hamas what the consequences will be if Americans are further harmed. And I want to talk about that. I want to spend a little bit of time talking just exactly what I hope President Biden says today. He's going to address the nation at 1 p.m. And I want him to say a couple of different things. And I'll tell you what those are coming up in just a couple of moments. Telephone number 817-379-2172. 817-379-2172. Looking at the chat room, let's see, the Carter administration's approach to the fall of Iran and the subsequent takeover of the Ayatollah may have set the stage for this decades ago. Yeah, I agree. The root of all of this is radical Islamic terrorism. It is a direct result of the Carter administration, says Gary. Sue says, the squad are anti-Jews and anti-American. Matt Gates is pro-American. Hopefully you can see the difference. There was an argument there about the squad and their anti-Jewish bigotry. It is just plain. And they're proud of it, in fact. They are absolutely proud of it, in fact. And I don't have a lot of things to say about them because they're just, again, degenerate savages. This is the Wells Report. We'll be back with more coming up in just a moment.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
Call 877-512-3895. That's 877-512-3895. 877-512-3895.
If you're living with diabetes and using insulin, you know the pain of pricking your fingers over and over again. By wearing a small device called a continuous glucose monitor, or CGM, you can reduce the pain of pricking your fingers right away. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline today and learn about the latest CGM technology. Not only can a CGM immediately reduce pain, it's accurate, easy to use, and helps you make better diabetes treatment decisions. And if you have Medicare or private insurance, you can see if you qualify for a CGM at little or no out-of-pocket cost. We'll also provide free shipping of your new CGM, and we'll bill your insurance company for you. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline to see if you qualify for a CGM at little to no out-of-pocket cost.
Nobody wants to get ripped off, broken into, or robbed, but nobody wants to pay a lot of money to have their home protected either. I've got an offer to tell you about to provide home security for your home for less than $1 a day. For real, with no installation or equipment charges. And this is from a company rated #1 by a leading consumer research company. According to the facts, most of you won't even call unless there's a burglary in your neighborhood or something bad happened. So let's give you a reason. Save money. For less than $1 a day with no other costs, you can get your home secured. Plus, get a lifetime equipment replacement warranty. You need protection for your home. Call the Home Security Hotline right now.
Get your home secured for less than $1 a day, and every caller today immediately qualifies for free installation. Call now.
Call 877-275-0973. 877-275-0973. That's 877-275-0973.
This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Today, the President of the United States will address the nation regarding the Israeli-Hamas war. There are some things I want him to say. The first has to do with Americans who have been killed and are kidnapped. This is the thing that I want him to say. I want him to make it abundantly plain that should anything happen to an American beyond the status quo ante, in other words, if any American hostage is killed, that will be the end. Now, there is an issue here that I have a real problem with, and that is not just the United States government, but also the French government. They have made statements that they're not sure that Iran is involved in this Hamas attack. And I suppose that there may be some kind of legal fig leaf that the Iranian regime can hide behind on this particular topic, but it's time for people to start looking at this plainly. And while I'm not a big believer in the abandonment of due process, what brought down the mafia in the United States of America was something called the Racketeering Influenced Corrupt Organizations Act, or the RICO Act. In other words, if, say, for example, organized crime was a duck, and it quacked like a duck, and it walked like a duck, and it swam like a duck, it was a duck. I don't know what a RICO statute would look like applied to a country. It would very likely be a declaration of war, but since that's probably off the table, we have to understand here that if Iran is a duck, and if this support of Hamas is a duck, it's quacking, walking, and swimming like a duck. I brought this up yesterday. I said that there was something called the Kennedy Doctrine. That if a nuclear weapon was launched from the island of Cuba and impacted on the United States, it would be considered a direct attack from the Soviet Union, requiring a full retaliatory response by the United States on the Soviet Union. The President of the United States needs to make it abundantly clear that there are Marines. I believe there are 4,000 Marines on a ship out in the Mediterranean. What they should do is they should cozy up to the Israeli coast, directly across from the Gaza Strip, and prepare to come ashore to remove every American in the Gaza Strip. And I would say that either Hamas turn over Americans immediately, or we will come and get them. And should Americans lose their lives, the President of the United States should also blame Iran directly. In other words, that if harm comes to an American, we will consider that to be a military attack on an American citizen by the Iranian military, an act of war, and we will conduct ourselves as such. Because at some point, you can only turn your cheek so many times. Sometimes you just have to reach out to your protagonist or your antagonist. That would be Iran with the United States. Grab them by the throat, look them very closely into the eyes and say, if you don't stop, we are going to obliterate you. And the reason that they don't stop is because nobody's had that conversation with them yet. It's time. We'll get back to Mike Pompeo. We'll also have a couple of words from Lindsey Graham, who's talking tough again. I don't know what any of it means, but we'll discover that together as we continue on the Wells Report. Our telephone number, 817-379-2172. Give us a call. Tell us what you think.
Nobody wants to get ripped off, broken into, or robbed, but nobody wants to pay a lot of money to have their home protected either. I've got an offer to tell you about to provide home security for your home for less than $1 a day. For real, with no installation or equipment charges. And this is from a company rated #1 by a leading consumer research company. According to the facts, most of you won't even call unless there's a burglary in your neighborhood or something bad happened. So let's give you a reason. Save money. For less than $1 a day with no other costs, you can get your home secured. Plus, get a lifetime equipment replacement warranty. You need protection for your home. Call the Home Security Hotline right now.
Get your home secured for less than $1 a day, and every caller today immediately qualifies for free installation. Call now.
Call 877-275-0973. 877-275-0973. That's 877-275-0973.
If you're living with diabetes and using insulin, you know the pain of pricking your fingers over and over again. By wearing a small device called a continuous glucose monitor, or CGM, you can reduce the pain of pricking your fingers right away. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline today and learn about the latest CGM technology. Not only can a CGM immediately reduce pain, it's accurate, easy to use, and helps you make better diabetes treatment decisions. And if you have Medicare or private insurance, you can see if you qualify for a CGM at little or no out-of-pocket cost. We'll also provide free shipping of your new CGM, and we'll bill your insurance company for you. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline to see if you qualify for a CGM at little to no out-of-pocket cost. How would you like to get high-speed internet for your home for less than $2 a day? That's right, for about $50 a month, you'll get lightning fast internet. Are you paying less than $50 a month right now for your internet? Then call Whole Home Connect right now for blazing fast internet at $50 a month with no price increases, no hidden fees, no contracts, no equipment fees. It's a great deal. And guess what? You can try it for 15 days. If you don't like it, you get your money back, but you're gonna love it, and you're gonna love the price. Internet for your home for $50 a month. That's less than $2 a day. Plus, no contracts, no equipment fees, and our 15-day guarantee. Call now.
Call 866-245-6155. That's 866-245-6155. Again, 866-245-6155. 866-245-6155.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
Call 877-512-3895. That's 877-512-3895. 877-512-3895.
This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Our telephone number 817-379-2172, 817-379-2172. There have been some people that have tapped me on the shoulder and said, John David, you're sounding a little bellicose today, a little warmongery. Well, there might be a reason. The United States Sun, the U.S. Sun, which is the derivative from the London Sun across the pond, reports the following on their front page. Hamas terrorists massacred at least 40 babies and kids in a sickening rampage in one town, with some children found beheaded, according to the Israeli military. Israeli soldiers discovered the scenes of unimaginable horror at Kfar Aza, a village close to the Gaza border that was held for 2 days by Hamas. The Israeli army took control of the besieged village, and soldiers are facing the gut-wrenching task of recovering the dead. Armed with guns, grenades, and knives, men, women, children, and babies were butchered in their beds early on Saturday morning after the Palestinian militant group stormed across the border. Speaking from the scene of the bloodbath, I-24 News reporter Nicole Zadak said a soldier told her they had found babies that had been decapitated. That's not the exact phrase. I'm not going to say it. The Israeli commander said at least 40 babies and children had been slaughtered. Visibly shaken by the atrocities, Nicole said no one could expect it to be like this. The horrors I'm hearing from these soldiers. About 40 babies at least were taken out on gurneys. They are going house to house and taking out dead bodies. She said cots and buggies were abandoned in the streets as terrified families fled the rampaging terrorists who stormed the village in waves every 20 minutes for an agonizing 48 hours. Israeli Major General Itai Veruv described sickening scenes of brutal violence where whole families were murdered in their homes. So, there are an awful lot of people that might think, gosh, John, you're talking about going and destroying the entire Gaza Strip. Yes, I am. But there are others. I don't put a whole lot of credibility in this. But at least Lindsey Graham may indeed be saying things that other people are at least thinking. Let's listen.
This, because I think you probably will have a strong reaction to it. This is further to the headline that came out a little while ago about Hamas now saying it's open to negotiations. According to Reuters, let me read this here off the wire. A senior Hamas official said the group is open to discussions over a possible truce with Israel, having, quote, achieved its targets. When you look at what happened Saturday, that would mean that its targets that it achieved were killing young people at a music festival, killing children in their homes, killing old people in their homes, and kidnapping many and taking them into Gaza. Your reaction?
Well, Hamas is a terrorist group that celebrates the killing of the innocent. Iran's regime, led by the Ayatollah, is a bunch of religious Nazis. They want to purify Islam in their own Shia image. They want to destroy the Jewish state and eventually come after us. This is an effort to kill all the Jews. The last time this happened was Adolf Hitler. The world was late to react. I'm urging the world to condemn Iran. I'm urging the Biden administration to cloak the White House tonight in the Israeli flag. You did it for Pride Month. I want to see the Israeli flag over the White House. The Brandenburg Gate has the Israeli flag. The Sydney Music Hall has the Opera House has the flag. Number 10 Downing has the Israeli flag. Small things go a long way. But I want this administration to tell the Iranians any escalation using Hezbollah to attack Israel or killing of hostages, we will hold you accountable. I can only stress this so much. The Iranians depend on oil revenue for their livelihood. The money to sponsor terrorism comes from the oil industry owned by the Ayatollah. Destroy it. There are 4 refineries. Destroy it. Tell the Iranians you escalate any further, then we're going to destroy your oil industry. And eventually, we're going to have to deal with this regime by taking it down. I don't want war, but I don't want to live like this either. This is hell on earth. This is barbaric. What they did to these Israelis should be severely condemned by all the Arab world. I am going to still pursue relationships between Saudi Arabia and Israel. I talked to the Israeli ambassador this morning. I talked to the Saudi ambassador this morning. Both of them said they're 1,000% confident this attack launched by Iran through Hamas was designed to derail the effort of normalizing between Saudi and Israel. A death blow to Iran would have the Arab-Israeli conflict end. They think this is about stopping efforts for Saudi, Israel, and the United States to do a peace deal. I will be going to the region soon. I want to let the Iranians know that we're more intent on doing this deal than ever. Your efforts to undercut peace between Saudi Arabia and Israel is going to fail, and we need to let them know they're a legitimate military target. 9 Americans are dead because the Ayatollah planned an attack. He could give a damn if Americans were involved. They're threatening to execute innocent hostages. For God's sake, tell the Ayatollah, if you kill one hostage, you launch another attack by Hezbollah against Israel, we're going to blow your industry off the map.
I can't see that there's anything wrong with that. Except, of course, that Lindsey Graham says a lot but doesn't do much. I think what we see here is we are beyond the looking glass at this point. We are across the Rubicon. These people are savages. The savagery is plain. It is time to believe what they say. We are ready to believe you. We are ready to believe that you really do believe what you say when you stand in your courtyards and yell death to America, death to Israel, and call us the great Satan. We're ready to believe you. Now, Joe Biden essentially restored $6 billion in Iranian funding that is being called fungible. In other words, it can be used for other things. And there is something that the president should do. He should immediately stop all of that funding from going to Iran. He should do it today. No more funding for Iran. That should be one thing. He should also do what I think Lindsey Graham just said. If you hurt one more American, we're going to take out one of your refineries. Now, that is a huge escalation. That is an act of war. The question is, do the people of the United States, not so much the people, I live in Texas, but does the United States leadership have the belly for it? Mike Pompeo, a former Secretary of State, he's a guy that has strong words. He was talking to Fox News yesterday. Listen to this incredibly gifted and intelligent man. This is an important interview for you to pay attention to.
Mr. Secretary, let me go over, maybe you can explain this to me. The first Iranian deal was Barack Obama and Joe Biden. And for the life of me, I never quite understood that deal. That would allow them to continue their nuclear program and ratchet it up, as a matter of fact, every year after every year. They didn't have any, as part of that deal, no U.S. inspectors. Billions of dollars going to Iranian mullahs. They didn't have anywhere, any place, any time inspections. I don't trust the mullahs of Iran as far as I can throw them. Okay, Donald Trump becomes president. That policy is stopped, thankfully. And here we are back with the $6 billion in ransom payments for 5 Americans. Now, they can argue all they want that so far not a penny of that $6 billion has gone to Iran, but the money has already been moved into Qatar, where we know it's going to end up in the Iranians' hands. And whether they say it's for humanitarian purposes or not, because the president of Iran has already said, you're not going to tell us how to spend the money, that frees up money that they would otherwise be spending on their own infrastructure, humanitarian aid, et cetera, for more terrorist attacks. They are the #1 state sponsor of terror. Tell me where this mindset comes from that you are going to do business and pay ransom to terrorists. I have a hard time understanding it.
Sean, it's completely unexplainable. It is completely illogical. It can only be that it's part of the Blame America First mantra that we're sort of the problem in the world. You saw this at Harvard's campus today. Just so indecent, so grotesque to see Americans supporting Hamas that's carting kids into the Gaza Strip to kill them on live TV. The fact that the $6 billion hasn't been spent yet, well, great. Make clear it's not going to be. Pull it back. And Sean, you know this too. We had the strictest sanctions ever imposed on the Iranian regime. It worked. We put them in the box. We isolated them. It built out the Abraham Accords and peace throughout the Middle East. At least 20, maybe $30 billion of Iranian wealth as a direct result of the Biden administration just refusing to enforce the sanctions they're required to enforce. No, it was Iran that fueled this. It is Iran that is the problem. Hamas executed a mission that was funded, trained, and directed by the Iranians. I'm confident we will find that, and I'm worried. I'm worried because they're going to do the same thing in the north. The Iranians are prepared to fight to the last Hezbollah life or the last Hamas life. It is going to have to be Iran that gets cost imposed on it, or this will continue.
How would you impose those costs? Because I agree with you. Ultimately, all the proxy wars that have been fought in the region, they all seem to have their origins of monies and support coming from Iran. We now even have direct reports that the Iranian Revolutionary Guard gave the okay, offered the weapons, gave the financial support. So what price does Iran pay in all of this, and how do they pay it?
So the first step is to make sure Israel secures its own space. It's got to go take down Hamas. Every last person who's connected to this got to be wiped off. Second, the United States should demand that not only the United States, but every other country stop providing any money to Iran. They're still funding the Palestinians in Judea and Samaria. They're still underwriting all kinds of programs that go to these terrorists. We've got to stop all of that funding. It could be done tomorrow. President Biden just has to say so. And then we need to make sure that we deny Iranians the chance to come to school in the United States. The list is long. We have done it, Sean. We know precisely how to execute this. We don't have to imagine how you build out peace and stability in the Middle East because we had done it for 4 years. The Biden administration just came in, ripped it up, turned it upside down. And the deaths that happened today are the responsibility of Hamas. They were caused by Iran. But the conditions were set by American weakness in Afghanistan, by allowing Vladimir Putin to think that a small invasion might be okay, and then ultimately not to convince the Iranians that we would have Israel's back. When your first instinct is to say, can't we all just get along and the Israelis need to stand down? And then the Secretary of State sends out a tweet that also had to be taken down because he demanded a ceasefire. Those are the things the Iranians observe. They know that America is not serious. And I pray that President Biden understands what is at risk. It is Israel and America's place in the world, and we have to get this right.
There is no doubt that what we see here is, okay, the last straw. I don't see how it's anything else. This is the last straw. These people have been, like throwing these rocks, taking pot shots, blah, 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 blah. And pretty soon, at some point, you have to decide, as I said earlier, you have to reach out, grab your antagonist by the throat, pull him close to you, and make it abundantly clear that this is the last straw. I agree. I agree with Mike Pompeo. The guy is a genius. Everything that can be done to isolate Iran should be done to isolate Iran. If the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps wants to be a terror group, fine. They can be the new ISIS. And we can treat them like the new ISIS. But the thing that we have here, and this is, again, very skillful on the part of these people. Remember, I was just talking about Hamas not necessarily being a nation state? Iran wants to play both games. The IRGC wants to be a terror group, but they're also associated with a nation, which is why going into Iran and destroying the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps would be an act of war. The question is, what would be the outcome? What would happen if the United States, say for example, on learning the hopefully never to actually happen news that these Hamas terrorists executed an American on video? I would say that the United States ought to take out the smallest refinery that Iran has. I mean, level it. turn it into a smoking hole in the earth. That is something that's going to happen. Is it an act of war? Yeah. Will there be fiery speeches in the United Nations? Sure. Absolutely. But then what? If there was a real president in the Oval Office, I could assure you that what would probably happen is that when somebody said something from the UN like, my God, the warmongering Americans, the president would say, so? We're getting to the point where we're actually going to have to start prosecuting the war that's happening right in front of us in slow motion. I would say that now's a good time. What are your thoughts? Let me know. This is The Wells Report.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
Call 877-512-3895. That's 877-512-3895. 877-512-3895.
How would you like to get high-speed internet for your home for less than $2 a day? That's right, for about $50 a month, you'll get lightning-fast internet. Are you paying less than $50 a month right now for your internet? Then call Whole Home Connect right now for blazing fast internet at $50 a month with no price increases, no hidden fees, no contracts, no equipment fees. It's a great deal. And guess what? You can try it for 15 days. If you don't like it, you get your money back, but you're gonna love it, and you're gonna love the price. Internet for your home for $50 a month. That's less than $2 a day. Plus, no contracts, no equipment fees, and our 15-day guarantee. Call now.
Call 866-245-6155. That's 866-245-6155. Again, 866-245-6155. 866-245-6155.
This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. We try not to interrupt what is a worldwide serious event so much as we've been doing with the war between Hamas and Israel. But indeed there is other news, and this is ancillary to the war. And so we'll spend a little bit of time talking about it, and that is the Republican Party trying to find a new Speaker of the House. There have been political statements talking about how the House of Representatives is powerless without a speaker. That is not true. And it is also not true that the country can't move forward with supporting the state of Israel any way it chooses, regardless of whether there's a House Speaker or not. But that being said, there is a chase for House Speaker. The Republican Party, they're working on that as we speak. Here's a quick little rundown as to what they're trying to get done by USA Today.
A battle is brewing over who will replace Kevin McCarthy as Speaker of the House.
House will come to order.
Both Representatives Jim Jordan of Ohio and Steve Scalise of Louisiana, the second highest ranking Republican in the House, jumped into the race. Jordan helped build the ultra-conservative Freedom Caucus. Scalise is a top member of the GOP leadership, but there are questions around his health since he's been diagnosed with blood cancer. Representative Kevin Hern has not officially announced his plans to run, but he said he is seriously considering it. He's the chair of the Republican Study Committee, the largest group of House Republicans. Whoever becomes the next Republican candidate will have to unify both moderates and far-right members to overcome Democratic opposition.
A lot of people have been calling me about Speaker. All I can say is we'll do whatever's best for the country and for the Republican Party.
Former President Donald Trump was floated as a possible speaker, but shot down the idea outside the courtroom where he is fighting a civil fraud case.
My total focus is being president.
Democrat Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries signaled whoever Republicans nominate, he plans to once again put his name forward, with his members likely to vote for him instead.
And that is going to play itself out very, very soon here. There could be some movement today, although I doubt it. Many people said that tomorrow would be the likely way or the likely day that something like this would be taken care of. Despite the House being frozen without a speaker, Congress is in for a hectic week. Republicans are scrambling to find a leader after the historic ouster of former Speaker Kevin McCarthy. Now, this is from USA Today. House Republicans have a schedule. They'll meet tonight to hold a candidate forum where prospective speakers will make their pitches to fellow GOP lawmakers. Next, they'll hold a secret vote on a nominee on Wednesday night. It's unclear when the House will hold an official speaker election. The ongoing war between Israel and Palestine could pressure lawmakers to pick up the pace and elect a new speaker that can act on the war, especially if they need to approve humanitarian aid or other crucial members. Following McCarthy's historic ouster as Speaker last week, leaving the House virtually powerless. That's bias on the part of USA Today, by the way. House Republicans went home to decide on next steps to crown a new leader and get the lower chamber moving again. So far, 2 GOP lawmakers have emerged as possible successors. House Majority Leader Steve Scalise, good man, and House Judiciary Committee Chair Jim Jordan, another good man. I believe that indeed the idea that Donald Trump being the House Speaker is something that is intriguing, but Donald Trump is busy and he knows it, and he's working on the presidency. Jim Jordan, I believe, is the right guy, not because Steve Scalise isn't capable or even perhaps a better candidate for Speaker, but he is ill, and it's something that he needs to take care of. If he was not dealing with multiple myeloma, which is called in this report blood cancer, I would say absolutely Steve Scalise. I've talked to him on the telephone. He's been on this broadcast. He's a wonderful human being and a real American patriot. On the other hand, you gotta have the starch in you to fight, and this is going to be a bar fight, and there's no doubt about it. And the guy that's good at bar fighting, Jim Jordan. So we'll see. Also, I would suspect that it would be quite possible that Kevin McCarthy would be elected as a new House Minority Leader if indeed Steve Scalise ascends to the speakership. You never know. All I can tell you is that there's a whole bunch of intrigue. What I want to say is this. I am very frustrated, along with a lot of people, about the political stylings of the Republican Party. I am equally frustrated with the way the Republican Party has framed this ouster of Kevin McCarthy. When it comes right down to who has damaged the Republican Party more, there are 3 groups. 1, the people who actually voted Kevin McCarthy out. Did they damage the Republican Party? I don't know. The other is the Republican Party, or the other is the Democrat Party, who basically probably thinks this is entertaining as hell. The third group are mainstream Republicans that have taken every possible opportunity to essentially degrade themselves as they possibly could. You know, they keep talking about how this is just awful and this is just terrible and it makes us look like idiots. Have you noticed the Democrat Party hasn't said that much about that? Oh, this is awful, this is terrible, it makes the Republican Party look like idiots. No, that's not being said by Democrats. It's being said by Republicans. Sometimes you just gotta, you gotta put that revolver down and stop shooting yourself in the ass with it. You really need to do that. I know you might be frustrated, but probably what you ought to do is you probably ought to keep it to yourself. Stop making yourself look stupid. And I'm talking to the mainstream Republicans. Executive producer of the Wells Report is Dirk Steele. Our associate producer and publicist is Jube Dankworth. Find her at netmediaconsultants.com. I'm John David Wells. Thanks for watching. See you again tomorrow. Well, all righty. Guys, thanks very much for being a part of the show today. I sure appreciate it. Okay? God bless all y'all. And take good care. Oh, you're welcome, Yvonne. Thanks very much for being such a stalwart of this broadcast. Thank you so much. I got to get to work big time. By the way, I just made a mistake. I am not going to be on the air tomorrow. I wanted to let you know this. I'll have this out on social media so you know. But the Wells Report will not be heard tomorrow. We'll return on Thursday, and hopefully I'll be able to report that we have a brand new Speaker of the House and that the President of the United States did the right thing and withheld $6 billion and told Iran that if you kill an American or if Hamas kills an American as hostage, an American hostage, that we're going to go to war with them. I know that's not going to happen, but I sure would like to see it. How about you? This is the Wells Report. Take good care. And like I said, I'll talk to you again